Welcome, everybody, to the Retail Corner podcast. We're here in Houston today, Houston, Texas. I'm traveling all over the place, so here I am. Today, I don't have a fancy background. I'm in a hotel room, but my guest, I'm super excited to introduce you guys to him. His name is Valentin Radu. He's the CEO of Omniconvert. Valentin, how are you doing this morning?
Hello there. I'm great. Actually, I'm great. I'm in Bucharest, so we are an ocean apart, but we're here with you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, I love nowadays, right? It's all about a global economy. It's all about global engagement in business. But it really, I think it allows for a lot of growth and a lot of challenge. And talking about growth and challenge, I think today what we want to talk about is we want to talk about the consumer life cycle, right? And really understand what does that mean to a retail business? What are they doing in order to increase that consumer life cycle? Because as we all know, no repeat business means no business at all, right?
Yeah.
So, with that, before we really dive into that topic, I want to talk a little bit about how the consumer has really changed from what it used to be to what it is today. Really, the consumer, we've seen how we used to love luxury. It was all about the luxury brands and it was all about the luxury name. It really almost didn't matter if we liked the t-shirt or if we liked the belt. It was just the matter that it had that logo and we would go and purchase it, right? And now, if we look at the new consumer, they all care about quality and creativeness. They all care about the life cycle of that product, how it was made, where it got created, what materials was it used, is it organic, the texture, the feel, and how unique it is so that they can really stand out as individuals and represent themselves through their clothing, through what they're wearing. But so that is why it's so important for retailers to understand that consumer life cycle so that they can retain that consumer. And with that, can you explain to us a little bit, foremost, what is consumer life cycle?
Uh, Pretty much, as we know, we are all driven by emotions, and nowadays, as the new generations are starting to catch up in terms of the purchasing power, they are all about identity. So nowadays, we're facing a shift in the behavior of the consumers towards being identified with what they are wearing, and that's why we are seeing brands such as Allbirds that recently got an IPO, because the story of the product is as important or even more important than the product itself. So
Mhm.
that's why we are seeing this shift in terms of the consumer life cycle. We are not seeing people which are loyal and addicted to a brand as they used to be, because nowadays this fast-paced environment are forcing the consumers, or are giving the consumers the option to choose, and that's why we are also living into an experience economy. If we are looking at this shift in the consumer behavior, we can see that the brands have a harder job in acquiring and then retaining the customers. So nowadays, the cycle to from the first interaction with the brand to that brand, forget about it, now there's this new brand in the market that I'm a fan of. This transition is way more shorter, way more faster. And in terms of the life cycle, pretty much the phases are all the same. So mainly we have a struggling moment, we don't feel well with ourselves, we are doing shopping therapy, we because nobody buys product to own the product, they buy products
To
to
feel good.
solve the job. Yeah, to feel good, to to
Mhm.
to fulfill their job, because at the end of the day, it's all about uh, feeling that you're better, right? It's like in The Mask, right? If you remember Jim Carrey, it's the product is the mask. You put on the mask and you're way better, you're way faster,
It's
you're
magical, yeah.
stronger. You plus the product equals a better person, and this kind of narrative we play in our heads as well. So without this phone, I'm not better, right? I'm I'm another person. So
You're as good
remember,
as the
if you
version of the phone, right? Yeah.
exactly, and if you don't have that, the many people, I mean, younger people in particular, they
Mhm.
they feel weaker, they don't feel stronger, and it's this play of the self-esteem within ourselves that we play in our heads. So in terms of the life cycle of the consumers, we need to understand the job to be done about the products. And now the brands, as I've said, the retailers have a different job. Let's say if you're a direct to consumer brand, your story, your packaging, your narrative is more important than
The
than it used
product
to be.
itself. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, we do know that there are, let's say, suboptimal, not to use harsh words, suboptimal products out there which are having a huge hype, and on the other end of the spectrum, we have uh, outstandingly good products that nobody heard of. And at the end of the day, we are living in this perception, right? NFTs are demonstrating that nowadays reality is not what it used to be. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk is drawing some I don't know, art, that's form of art, and he's
Mm-hmm.
selling it with $400,000 worth of Ethereum. So at the end of the day, what's important, the art or the creator of the art, or the perception that you are owning a piece of art which is being drawn by your idol.
Correct, correct. Yeah, and unfortunately, to a certain degree, right? Unfortunately, it's all about perception, right? I really think so. And I say unfortunately because a lot of times it's so ironic that nowadays we're chasing that quality and that creativeness, but it really gets lost because we're dictating that quality and that creativeness based on perception, not based on the actual quality necessarily of the products. You know,
Yeah.
so it's very ironic, you know, how we're pursuing something that at the same time we're avoiding so much, you know, but it happens. But I think most importantly, what do you foresee right now that I don't like to say we're getting back to normal because let's be real, we're not getting back to normal. It's like we're starting from the beginning, right? And
Yeah.
it's a complete transition, as you very well mentioned. You know, you got the NFTs, you got virtual reality, you got avatars. I mean, all this digital movement is becoming its own digital world, right? And with that, where do you see the struggles or the challenges for customer acquisition for retailers going forward, right? What do you think they're going to have to do in order to adapt to this?
Yeah, I think the playing field is being changed right now. I mean, it's clear that any retailer should have an omni-channel strategy. I mean, this is the new normal. The new normal is that the customers are having all these routes to get to your products. An important aspect is to be able to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So it's the same thing like the good old Seth Godin advice: uh, be the purple cow, right? So that
Mhm.
you are out of the box. There's everyone, and there is our brand, which is doing this, that, and the other. But in order to stand out from the crowd, the brands and the retailers must do their job tremendously well. So they need to work more like media companies rather than
Mhm.
brands, established factories. We are building the best shoes team since 1842. Nobody gives a damn about it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about heritage anymore. It's not about the materials. It's all about the story. So if you can have a compelling story, then the market can be yours. And in terms of the acquisition, the hygiene part should be on the products end, and on the other end, it should be the customer experience. So nowadays, when we don't have access to cookies like we used to, nowadays when the competition is fierce, nowadays when the CPAs are through the roof, nowadays the brands, the retailers, and the direct to consumer brands should be focusing on turning their existing customers into evangelists. And in order to do so, they need to do their job tremendously well. So it's now the hygiene is to have a great product. Now the hygiene is to deliver on your promise. What is the cosmetic on top of the hygiene is to
Mhm.
over deliver, is to delight your customers so that they simply talk about this outstanding experience. So that's the new job of the brands. And in order to do so, they need to track how many of their customers are amplifying their brand. They need to come up with programs that are really making sense, not those stupid loyalty, get this by the other, or these 24 points if you share us on Facebook. They need to come up with a strategy that is truly making sense for their consumers, because without this type of network effect, it's really hard to survive and thrive, unless you are of course the ones that are selling the instruments in the gold rush, which are the selling pickaxes.
No, I completely agree with you, and I love that analogy that you made about the typical loyalty programs, right, that are out there in the market. If you think about it, those point value ads, right? People now see them simply as a discount, right? So there's no value add, there's no connection to your brand, there's no loyalty sense or factor that's going to happen, or engagement really with the consumer, right? It's simply a
Yeah,
coupon. To them, it's like, oh, how do I buy more for less? And that's it.
exactly.
Versus, to your point, creating an experience, right? Something that I can embrace your brand with, take a picture, put it on my Instagram, and now I'm sharing with the world how amazing my life is because I engage with your brand. And
Yeah,
subsequently, that's going to want more people to say, I want that experience, I want that picture on my Instagram, I want that shirt, or I want that,
yeah.
display. Or maybe they had, Steve Aoki at one of their stores playing in, live or something like that. Like, and it's very challenging because it becomes very expensive, right? And how do you factor in your opinion, now the acquisition cost of a customer, right? Is it becoming more expensive because now you have to not only provide a product and this magnificent delightful experience to your consumer, and now you have to think of all the store locations that you have and how you provide that same experience across all your stores, and how do you retain that cost, right? How do you bring that cost down?
Yeah, I think the first step to nail this game is to measure what matters. So in order to truly become data driven, you need to first become customer centric. So you need to understand what is the consumer behavior, how many of your consumers are buying again, when they are buying again. So things like average days between the transactions, or the purchase frequency, or giving tracking the customer happiness score, let's say, those things are going to become the norm in the future, because of course it's going to be too expensive to acquire a customer to justify playing the old game. So in order to improve these things, my perception so far, by working with so many brands in the last year, so mainly imagine that I've been doing interviews with around 300 e-commerce leaders in the last 2 years,
Wow.
and I've heard so many stories and so many perceptions, but the common denominator is that we are struggling to differentiate. So in order to differentiate, I think you need customer research. So you need to understand what is the job to be done by your product. Once you understand the job to be done by your product, you need to articulate the narrative towards doing the job. So if, for instance, I'm buying the same phone and I have 25,000 options to buy an iPhone at this moment, right? So if I have these 25,000 options, 25,000 shops, why should I go to your shop? And the response is in the heads of the super consumers. So any brand which is a bit established, any store, any direct to consumer, any retailer has a group of small customers, a small group of customers called the super consumers, right? So these super consumers are somehow finding something valuable at your brand. And most of the retailers are putting money into ads to acquire more customers without knowing why their super consumers are picking them and who they are, what's their age group, what they are finding. So what's so valuable at their brand that those customers are buying over and over again. From our own benchmark, we've realized that the group of super consumers are around 1 to 5%, and they generate between 20 to 65% of the net margin.
20
So
to 65%. Wow.
exactly, because
Wow.
after you subtract the customer acquisition cost from all the customers, you will have customers that bought, I don't know, 20 times from a shop, from a store, but you paid the customer acquisition cost only once. So if your CAC is $20, and if your initial purchase has an AOV of, let's say, $40 with a margin of $25, that you are making only $5 from the first purchase. But if that customer comes 20 times, you don't pay the customer acquisition cost again, but you have the whole customer lifetime value to justify the net margin. So it's a numbers game. It's a quantitative game and also a qualitative game. So in order to respond to your question with this huge parenthesis, you need to first have a voice and differentiate to stand out from the crowd. So you just need to ask to find your super consumers and to ask them to understand why they are choosing you over the others, and then acquire more like them by nailing the acquisition towards the narrative that's working for your store.
Wow. No, I that is amazing. I did not those numbers. I mean, that's insane. Those percentages that you just gave me, and it's you have such a great valid point to understand the super consumer, right? Because really, if you invest money in understanding that particular small selected group, right, and you invest money in them, then you know how to find more of them, right?
Exactly.
Because otherwise, to your point, yeah, you're just investing in getting customers all the time, but you're not focused on the people that are really putting your brand out there, right? The people that are in essence being your ambassadors of your
Exactly.
brand, not just from a social media perspective, but from a purchasing perspective, right? And I think you have such a great point. I mean, guys, if you have your retail store there, if you're an executive for a retail company, I think, talking with my friend right here, I really recommend it. I mean, the type of information that he's sharing with us, it's very unique and it's very interesting. And I think Valentin can definitely, and his company can provide a lot of value to whatever efforts that you guys are doing. And Valentin, I think I have one last question for you, and I'm just curious on this. I see behind you have CVO Academy.
Yeah.
What is that all about? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So since I was a kid, I wanted to learn a lot. I was reading a lot, and I said to myself that I want to be a teacher sometime. Well, life turned out to be different for me. I founded 4 companies so far, but I still love to teach, and I still love to share insights with the others. I think we're in this life to share knowledge, to share shortcuts so that we are not messing around and we are not wasting our time. So
Yes,
after 16 years in the e-commerce space, I've decided to focus on giving other e-commerce entrepreneurs and agencies and e-commerce professionals the opportunity to learn about my insights. So I teamed up with a few authors like Bob Moesta, which is the pioneer of the jobs to be done methodology, with Dennis Yu, which is one of the best Facebook ads expert out there, with Val Geisler, with Chase Dimond, which are nailing the email marketing game. So we've built an academy called Customer Value Optimization Academy. So CVO is the name of the acronym, which is about around improving customer lifetime value, because that's what the brands should be all about. Giving value so that you can receive value. This is the good old principle since we are awake as a species, right? So
I
we built
absolutely
this
agree.
academy, and now we give access. We have some free introductory courses around CVO, and we also have a paid certification program that allows companies to level up their game. This is made for companies and experts out there that know that it's more to e-commerce than paying the tribute to Facebook and Google ads.
Wow, that's wonderful. I really, really like it, and I think, and you have such a valid point. It's so important to share our knowledge, right? That's how we evolve. That's how we continue to grow as a community, right? As a global community, and I think and I hope people step away from this misconception that they want to keep very private what they know, because there is enough in the world to go around for all of us, you know.
That's right.
And if we start understanding that factor, and we stop being so selfish, I think we will continue to help each other grow. And then I think everybody has the opportunity to have a very comfortable lifestyle, right? Not just from a monetary perspective, but from a work balance, from a family balance, from a vacation balance, from all these different aspects. But it will not start until you're willing to share what you know with others and willing to understand what others can share with you. And with that, last question I'd like to ask all of my guests: if you had one piece of advice for all the entrepreneurs and all the executives out there in the market, what would that be?
Um, I think the best advice would be to start to listen, but to really listen, to see what's out there. I mean, seek first to understand and then to be understood. I think when it's so much noise out there, you don't have to raise your voice, but to understand what to tell. And in order to understand what to tell, you need to start listening to your customers, to go out there to get some advice from them, because the customer is not at the table where you are making decisions towards your growing your company.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and for sharing all of the information. For everybody out there listening, again, Omniconvert, we will put all the details at the bottom. Our production team will take care of that. But please reach out. I mean, I think Valentin is a great asset from a knowledge perspective, what they're doing on his company, what they're innovating, what they're bringing to the table, and the value add for all of you guys out there. It's very, very important. And Valentin, thank you so much for your time and for spending, a good 20 minutes with us today. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to maybe conversating in the future and seeing how the market is shifting and how things are progressing.
That's great. Thanks a lot for having me today, and thanks everyone for listening to me. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm out there for anyone which needs an advice from my end.
Thank you so much. If you wish to have a conversation with us, then email us at retailcorner@proxima360.com or visit our website at theretailcorner.proxima360.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe and see you next time.